Infowars host Alex Jones has just lost 2 lawsuits that were filed against him by parents or families of Sandy Hook victims, and he lost those by default judgment. Now, the reason why he lost it by that is because he had failed to produce documents that were related to his outlandish and really harmful statements towards a lot of those families that resulted in threats that were posed on them by many of his followers because of his conspiracy theories around that. So first, they did talk about how this is a rare type of decision, this default judgment. So first I want to go to the Cornell Law School's definition of exactly what this is and why it happened this way. So this, the default judgment arise in circumstances whereby one party to a suit has failed to perform a court-ordered action, and subsequently that failure has not only prevented the issue from being presented before the court, but also results in the court settling the legal dispute in favor of the compliant party. So it's basically one of those things where you didn't show up. You know, if you got the traffic ticket and you didn't show up, they're gonna rule against you because you're not there. You didn't fulfill your part of this process. So he lost based off of that. Now, Judge Maya Guerra Gamble on Monday, she issued that ruling for default judgments against Jones in 2 different cases, which means that he and the conspiracy theory-spewing outlet, this is from the Huffington Post, Infowars, have been found liable for all damages, and a jury will now be convened to determine exactly how much he will owe the plaintiffs. That's the next step. We're gonna see how much he has to shell out now for this thing. Sandy Hook was 2012, and we're getting to this point now. We saw the depositions of things that happened as well, which we'll get to a clip of that as well, because this has been a long-standing, ongoing case. And finally, as his refusal to participate in it, he has lost it this way. So continuing on, the ruling, which is often referred to in Texas as a death penalty sanction for a party unwilling to comply with court orders, is a rarity in the legal world, as I mentioned. Jones, who is now on his 7th lawyer in these cases, had years to provide documentation requested by the court, including internal company emails. Now, his attorney isn't very happy, this 7th attorney isn't very happy about this decision. He said, his name is Brad Reeves, he told the Austin American-Statesman earlier this month that a default judgment against Jones would be a hugely excessive response to his discovery failures. I'm not sure what else they can do outside of it. And the reason he may think that is because Jones did say this is back in 2019 during his deposition about this whole case, about how he now feels about his conspiracy theories, and specific this one about Sandy Hook victims.
And I myself have almost had like a form of psychosis back in the past where I basically thought everything was staged, even though I've now learned a lot of times things aren't staged. So I think as a pundit and someone giving opinion, that my opinions have been wrong, but they were never wrong consciously to hurt people.
You said false things about Sandy Hook because of the psychosis.
Well, I'm gonna say,
correct?
Well, I'm just saying that the trauma of the media and the corporations lying so much, then everything begins, you don't trust anything anymore. Okay. Kind of like a child whose parents lie to them over and over again. Well, pretty soon they don't know what reality is. So long before these lawsuits, I said that in the past I thought everything was a conspiracy, and I would kind of get into that mass groupthink of the communities that were out there saying that. So now I see that it's more in the middle, and so that's where I stand.
So that was 2019. He now stands in those particular positions with that. But one more part of this, because as this was going, as I pointed, let's go to this graphic number 6 before we open this up for more discussion. This is what the judge that ruled this was continuing to say about his reaction to it. She said, in considering whether lesser remedies would be effective, this court has also considered the defendant's general bad faith approach to the litigation, Mr. Jones's public threats, and Mr. Jones's professed belief that these proceedings are show trials is some of the things that he was doing that led her to determine this. I guess the question now is what's next for him and how this will affect his show and his ongoing discussions.
Yeah, I wish we had a legal expert on the panel. Oh, we do, okay. So Adrian, I'm gonna come to you to explain what's going on here in the legal proceedings. Is there gonna be an appeal? What is this? My layman's sense of it is that it's basically a TKO, technical knockout here. But I want to know just real quick here, and we'll come back to this topic. And by the way, Alex Jones sued us in the middle of this, and it hurt his cases. So it's hilarious. You're gonna love that story. But notice that when he's on the record, all of a sudden he's like, oh, the stuff I say on air. No, that's psychosis, I'm nuts. He said, he didn't know what reality was. Do all of his fans know that? All right, we'll come back to that. But Adrian, tell us what this means, and is this case actually over? Is this make it easier to appeal? Yeah, it is rare, so yeah, let us know.
So basically, Alex Jones lost by default, and this is really a product of his own doing. He had multiple opportunities in order to comply with the court's order for discovery, and especially given how much was already invested in this case in terms of all the hours of depositions and the documents had been turned over, you would have thought he would have continued along and gone the distance, but instead, according to the court, he simply played games. And the court will give you multiple chances until it feels like, hey, this is the last straw, and Alex Jones continued to test the court. And in this situation, and in most situations here, this kind of default judgment entry, again, so incredibly rare. That tells you that the court did everything in their power to get Jones to comply, but hey, he kept messing around, and as a result, he has now lost this case. So the jury gets to decide how much Jones will have to pay these parents of the Sandy Hook children who were murdered. And in doing so, what's gonna happen is the jury will issue an award, and I'm sure that Alex Jones will probably try to appeal this. And this case has already gone to appeal once with the Texas Supreme Court, where Alex Jones is like, hey, you can't sue me for this, I'm just talking. And Texas Supreme Court said, yeah, we can. And so the thing is, it just really seems that Alex Jones has been out here running amok and claiming, of course, I shouldn't be believed and I was having psychosis, but now he's actually going to have to foot the bill. And given that he's been already booted from Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and whatnot, lost the advertising and the syndication revenue, I think that it's going to cost him a pretty penny.
Well, I mean, obviously we don't know what the jury's going to decide on the payment, but having your fans chase down the parents of murdered children, and never really stopping them, saying on the record that it's psychosis, but when you go on air, continuing to encourage it. A lot of these folks got vicious death threats to the point that people had to be in prison for how many death threats they were sending the parents of the kids who were killed. That's who this monster is, Alex Jones. And the amount that he might have to pay might be backbreaking, to the point where he's bankrupt and can no longer do what he's doing.
I say this a lot with the My Pillow guy and the lawsuits that are potentially going against him and other folks that were pushing this line, constantly trying to get somewhere with this. Where do you believe this should end? What's the final goal here? What was the idea? When you saw this, you think this was, did he really think this was a show trial? Did he really think this is a fake judge? Do you think that this is like a sitcom and eventually they're gonna go, oh, okay, cut? When did he think this was gonna get real? And does he care? Is there a detachment from reality? Is it really psychosis? Because look, Fox News, when they were dealing with all the things that were coming against Tucker Carlson, they probably participated in at least in the lawsuit, and said, oh yeah, he's just doing it for entertainment. Don't take him seriously. He says this in a way, but then continues to act like it and then weaponize his audience in these types of events. What was the end game? I'm still trying to figure that out.
Well, Jared, the basic question you're asking is the one we've always been asking. Is he actually crazy or just playing crazy? Right? And so at different points in the lawsuit, he said, oh, I'm like an actor. I'm a clown, I put on a show. You shouldn't really believe anything I say. Now, again, he never tells his audience that, and they genuinely believe it, and they genuinely stalk these people. One of the parents had to move 9 times. This is unbelievably traumatic, and it's a minor miracle there hasn't been more violence associated with it. But I think you had the right comparison there, JR. When it comes to Fox News, they're clearly not crazy. So they have strict vaccine and mask requirements within Fox News. And then they go and lie to their audience. So almost everybody at Fox News is vaccinated. And then they're like, oh, I don't know though, but being vaccinated is kind of a weak thing to do. I guess girls do it, right? And real men who believe in freedom and fighting against government tyranny don't do vaccines. Meanwhile, they're vaccinating like crazy, right? Yeah. And then when they go to the lawsuits, Fox is like, oh, no, we're just totally playing on air. No one actually, they literally say no one would actually believe Tucker Carlson. They're like, no, it's super obvious that everything is hyperbole and ridiculous. It's an entertainment show. And so that's it's a multi-billion-dollar company, and they're not playing around. It's a strategy to purposely lie to you, okay? With lone wolves like Alex Jones, my best guess is he is crazy, because to just give you real quick the details of how it got to this point, with the judge sanctions him and then says, okay, now look, you have to, normally in a lawsuit, you got to turn over records. You don't have a choice, okay? And if you destroy the records, then you're in a lot of trouble for other reasons. That's other laws that you're violating. So you got to turn them over. Now, in this case, they sanction, they do this, they do that. Then they start fining him. They fine him $150,000, and he still won't turn over the records. And he's saying to the court, basically, I don't believe you have real authority. I don't think you're gonna do anything. I'm white, I'm a right winger, I'm above the law. So what are you gonna do about it, huh? And the judge said in this case, here's what I'm gonna do. You lost, it's over, technical knockout. You are not participating in this trial, so the other side wins. Now let's go find out how much damage you're gonna have to pay here. So that's my sense of it. I'm gonna come back and tell you the story about how he sued us. But Adrian, for what it's worth, crazy, or does he have a plan? I mean, but when you see someone like this in court who just will not comply with anything the court says, what's your general assumption?
Oh, no, not crazy at all. Generally, individuals who are crazy do respond, and they respond with all sorts of shenanigans that you would not believe. But by virtue of the fact that he completely was ignoring the court's order, had already been fined that $150,000, as you mentioned, I think that this was either he's shoulder shrugging it, or he doesn't think that the jury is actually really gonna come down on him. Because also the fact is, we have to remember, to the extent that it is helpful economically, legal fees are tax deductible. And on top of that, he will have his own, I bet, some kind of personal liability insurance. Also, his company is under siege. They are gonna have their own insurance. So there's possibly an insurance provider who will pay for some of this, but also depending on the fact that he defaulted judgment, who knows? But I could see him filing for bankruptcy or going for some kind of, Trump certified business plan in order to essentially leave these parents high and dry. But one thing I would definitely love to say is that this is great precedent for individuals like Tucker Carlson and the rest of them out there spewing lies, because by holding at least Alex Jones accountable, hopefully it will deter others out there who get on their pulpits and lie and manipulate and send these misinformation and disinformation campaigns that are essentially giving us a lot of citizens out here who are absolutely losing touch with reality.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I hadn't thought of it that way. It's true. When someone's crazy, they don't not reply. They send like beautiful mind drawings, right? With like lots of things where you go, wait, what is that? What are you talking about, right? He's cognizant enough to say that he had psychosis and that he's somewhere between psychosis and reality. He literally says, sometimes I don't know what reality is and sometimes I do, right? And maybe there's some truth to that. That might be the only thing he's saying that's true. But overall, he's clearly clear-headed enough to put forward an argument, to not comply. And look, why I think this case is so important to the country is because the right wing keeps acting like they're above the law. And in this case, we're gonna find out, are they above the law? Or no, we actually have rule of law in this country and it applies to everybody. And so finally, let me get to this party where he sues us. So at some point we start talking about Alex Jones and one of the stories, I don't even remember which one it was. We say things that are obviously perfectly truthful, but that hurt his feelings, right? And so he decides that he's gonna sue us for defamation because we hurt his feelings. And the problem is though, when he files that lawsuit, the Sandy Hook parents' lawyers get it, and then they bring it to court in this case. And they say, by his own standards, Alex Jones's defamation is far worse and proves that he also believes that making statements like this is defamation. So he should be guilty in his own trial. You know what happened? They're like, oops, they dropped a suit against us instantly. Clown-orama. He's gone through 7 lawyers because the same thing with Trump. The lawyers come in, they go, well, you're breaking the law. And he's like, I don't like that. You're fired. I want to sue the Young Turks, but it's gonna hurt your case even worse. It's gonna cost you more money. I don't care, you're fired.
How does he find these guys?
Yep.
Like you have to go through this many attorneys, and after the first 4 of them said, you know what? This doesn't make any sense. I can't be, whatever reason. I mean, I'm speculating the reasons why they left. Maybe he got rid of them. Maybe they resigned. Maybe they, maybe he wasn't paying them. Who knows? Whatever thing it was, but they left. There comes a point after the first, I would say 2, where you go, maybe I'm in the wrong here. Maybe I'm wrong here. I don't know when that kicks in. Because his attorney, by the way, this is fun. I was gonna skip this last line. His attorney, this same attorney, Reeves.
007?
Yeah, he was
the 7th one.
Yeah, he was reached out. Yeah, the 7th one. He's like, maybe this is my lucky number. They reached out. Huffington Post reached out to him, and he said he had no comment regarding that decision. Quote: "I haven't really analyzed the rulings, so I don't know exactly what's going to happen."
Oh my goodness.
Adrian, do you put out a statement like that as a lawyer?
No, not at all. I
haven't looked at it yet.
Incompetent. Are you out of your mind? Just say nothing, bro. Oh, but hey, I guess that's a 7th lawyer kind of behavior, so whatevs.
Yeah, and it's 7th lawyer behavior because he went through 6 other lawyers, and you're like, screw it, I'll take it anyway.
Oh my God, he should have hired Tiffany Trump. She probably would have been better.
All right, so we'll see. This is the beginning of maybe the end for Alex Jones. It'll take a while for the jury to rule. He'll appeal. He'll be on the air in the meanwhile. But if they lay down the hammer on him and he does not win on appeal, Adrian's right. The insurance might also cover it, but if it gets beyond the insurance or the insurance doesn't cover it, because like it's possible the insurance says, hey, listen, you have insurance as long as you show up to court. But if you're not going to do what the court says, the insurance doesn't cover that. We don't know that yet, right? But if there's plenty of fact patterns where Alex Jones is broke and can't do the show anymore. In fact, the parents that he so badly treated might be able to take his studio.
I think they'll start doing a show.
That would be wonderful.
That would be wonderful. Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.